When a single father's act of kindness to a powerful CEO becomes a scandal that destroys his livelihood overnight, he must choose between silence and standing in the truth, no matter the cost. If you're ready to witness a story about dignity, integrity, and the courage to protect what matters most, stay with me until the very end. And if this story moves you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see just how far Ryan's journey travels across the world. The snow fell in thick, silent sheets across Manhattan, transforming the city into something almost peaceful. Almost. Ryan Cole sat behind the wheel of the black sedan, engine idling, watching the crystalline flakes dissolve against the windshield. His hands rested on the steering wheel, steady, patient, accustomed to waiting. Waiting was what drivers did. Waiting was what fathers did too, in their own way. Through the frosted glass of the Metropolitan Grand Hotel, he could see the blur of movement, the sparkle of champagne glasses catching light, the silhouettes of people who lived in a world he only observed from the margins. Apex Systems' 20th Anniversary Gala, 2 decades of technological dominance, celebrated by the people who shaped industries with keystrokes and capital. Ryan knew the names, recognized the faces from news clips and magazine covers. But to them, he was furniture. Expensive, reliable furniture that got them home safely when the champagne ran out. His phone buzzed against the console. A text from Mrs. Chen, his neighbor and lifeline. Lily's asleep. Science project is on the table. Don't forget parent-teacher conference Thursday. Ryan smiled, the kind of smile that carried weight. His daughter. 6 years old, gap-toothed, obsessed with butterflies and asking impossible questions about why the sky changed colors. She was his center. His reason for every choice, every sacrifice. Single fatherhood hadn't been the plan, losing Emma never was. But plans didn't matter anymore. Only Lily did. He typed back quickly. Thank you, I owe you dinner. You owe me 12 dinners. But who's counting? The smile stayed as he pocketed the phone. Mrs. Chen had been counting since the day Emma died, since Ryan had stumbled home from the hospital with a 2-year-old and no idea how to do any of it. She taught him which fevers mattered, how to braid hair, where to buy shoes that actually fit. She never asked for anything except that he keep showing up, keep trying, keep being the father Lily deserved. The radio crackled. Unit 12, you there? Ryan reached for the handset. 12 here. Need you inside. VIP exit, personal request. Ryan frowned. Personal requests didn't happen. Drivers were assigned, rotated, invisible. Copy that. Who's the client? A pause. Then, Grant, Evelyn Grant. She asked for you specifically. The name landed like a stone in still water. Evelyn Grant. The Evelyn Grant. CEO of Apex Systems, architect of the digital infrastructure half the world relied on. Forbes cover regular. Reputation for brilliance and ice in equal measure. Ryan had driven her before, twice, maybe 3 times over the past year. Brief trips, 0 conversation beyond destination confirmations. She probably didn't remember his name. You sure she asked for me? Positive, said the tall driver with the kind eyes. That's you, right? Ryan didn't know what to do with that. Kind eyes. He checked his reflection in the rearview mirror, just a 42-year-old man with tired eyes and responsibilities. Nothing kind about exhaustion. On my way. He stepped out into the cold snow, immediately dusting his shoulders, and made his way to the service entrance. The hotel staff knew him, nodded as he passed through the warm corridors lined with gilded mirrors and abstract art worth more than his annual salary. The VIP exit opened onto a private alcove where a handful of other drivers stood, checking phones, comparing notes on traffic patterns. A security officer approached him, earpiece visible, expression unreadable. Cole? That's me? Ms. Grant is ready. It's been a difficult evening. Just get her home safe. There was something in the way he said it, a warning, maybe, or just exhaustion of his own. Ryan nodded and waited. The door opened. Evelyn Grant stepped through, and Ryan understood immediately what the security officer meant. She looked nothing like the woman on magazine covers. The tailored black gown still hung perfectly. The diamond earrings still caught the light. But something fundamental had shifted. Her face was pale, composed in the way people are composed when they're holding themselves together with pure will. Her eyes, sharp, calculating eyes that had stared down investors and rivals, were somewhere else entirely. "Mr. Cole." Her voice was steady, but quieter than he remembered. "Ms. Grant." He opened the car door, the snow swirling between them. "Ready when you are." She paused at the door, one hand on the frame, and looked at him. Really looked at him. Not through him, not past him, but at him. "Thank you for coming." "It's my job, ma'am." "No." She slid into the back seat, and he caught the faintest tremor in her hands. "It's not like this." Ryan closed the door gently and circled to the driver's seat, questions forming that he had no right to ask. He adjusted the mirrors, checked the address on file, her penthouse in Tribeca, and pulled into traffic. The city slid past in a blur of headlights and snow. Normally, he'd put on soft jazz, maintain the silence clients preferred. But something stopped him tonight. The way she'd looked at him, the security officer's warning, the request for him specifically. "Long evening?" he asked carefully, eyes on the road. In the mirror, he saw her head turned toward the window. The longest. Silence stretched. Ryan let it. Silence was a language too, one he'd learned in grief. People filled silence when they were ready, or they didn't. Both were acceptable. But then she spoke again, softer. "Do you ever feel like you're performing? Like every word, every gesture, every expression is choreographed for an audience that's always watching, always judging?" Ryan thought about Lily's school, the other parents who'd stopped inviting them to play dates after Emma died, the careful mask he wore when people asked how he was managing. "Sometimes," he admitted, "more than I'd like." 20 years. Her reflection was ghost-like in the glass. 20 years of building something that matters. And tonight they threw a party. Speeches about innovation and vision and leadership. They gave me a crystal trophy. Do you know what the inscription says? Ryan waited. "To the woman who changed everything." As if I'm already past tense. As if the company can move forward without me now that the foundation's built. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "My CFO gave the longest speech. He talked about the future. He didn't mention my name once in the last 5 minutes. Sounds like he's positioning himself. He is. They all are. Circling, waiting, calculating when the right moment is to suggest I step back, take an advisory role, let fresh perspectives guide the company into its next phase." Her voice hardened. "I'm 48 years old. I built this from nothing, from a garage and a credit card and nights without sleep, and they're already writing my exit." Ryan navigated around a taxi, thinking carefully about his next words. "My wife used to say that the hardest thing about being good at something is that people stop seeing the work. They just see the results and assume it's easy." The silence that followed was different, heavier. "Your wife sounds wise." She was. Past tense, always past tense now. "She died 4 years ago. Cancer." "I'm sorry." "Me too." Ryan turned onto her street, the familiar route automatic now. "But she was right. People see the company you built and think it runs itself. They don't see the decisions that kept it alive, the risks that paid off, the ones that almost didn't. They just see success and assume anyone could maintain it." "Exactly." The word came out sharp, almost relieved. "Nobody remembers the years of rejection, the investors who laughed at me, the code I wrote at 3 a.m. because we couldn't afford to hire enough engineers, the relationships I sacrificed, the life I didn't build, the choices I made because the company always came first." She paused. "It always came first." Ryan pulled up to her building, a glass tower that seemed to stretch into the falling snow. The doorman was already moving toward the car, umbrella ready. This was normally where the conversation ended, where clients returned to their worlds and drivers returned to theirs. But Evelyn didn't move. "Mr. Cole?" Her voice had changed again, smaller now, almost fragile. "Do you have somewhere you need to be? Someone waiting for you?" He thought of Lily, asleep in her bed, safe with Mrs. Chen. "My daughter's with a neighbor. She's fine." "Would you—" She stopped, and in the mirror he saw her struggling with something. "Would you stay? Just for a little while? I have an excellent Scotch collection and absolutely no one to share it with." Every instinct said no. This was crossing lines that existed for good reasons. Drivers didn't socialize with clients. Employees didn't enter the personal spaces of their bosses. Single fathers didn't make choices that could complicate the careful stability they'd built for their children. But something in her voice, the same something he'd heard in his own voice in the months after Emma died, made him hesitate. "I don't drink on the job," he said carefully. "You're off the clock. I'll pay for your time." "That's not what I'm worried about." She met his eyes in the mirror. "What are you worried about?" Honesty seemed like the only option. That you're having the kind of night where company feels necessary, and tomorrow it'll feel like a mistake. "You're probably right." She gathered her clutch, her composure reassembling itself piece by piece. "But I'm asking anyway." Ryan thought about the empty apartment waiting for him, the silence he'd fill with late-night television and tomorrow's lunch preparations. He thought about Lily, who asked him constantly why he never had friends over, why he never went anywhere except work and her school. He thought about Emma, who'd always said that kindness mattered more than convenience. "One drink," he said. "Then I need to get home." Something in her face softened, gratitude, maybe, or relief. "One drink." The penthouse was exactly what Ryan expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than his car, art that he recognized from museum visits with Lily. Everything was perfect, pristine, and utterly impersonal. No photographs, no clutter, no evidence that anyone actually lived here. Evelyn moved to the bar with practiced efficiency, pulling down 2 crystal glasses and a bottle of scotch that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "Neat or rocks?" "Neat's fine." She poured 2 generous measures and handed him one, then gestured to the windows. "Best view in Manhattan, or so the real estate agent promised." Ryan stood beside her, looking out at the snow-covered city. Light stretched in every direction, millions of lives playing out in countless windows. "Do you ever watch the people down there? Wonder about their lives?" "Sometimes." She sipped her drink. "Mostly I wonder if they're happier, if smaller lives mean simpler problems." They don't. Ryan thought about arguing with insurance companies over Lily's medication, the school's suggestion that she needed additional services he couldn't afford, the constant calculation of every dollar against every need. Problems scale? They just look different. "You have a daughter." "Lily, she's 6, obsessed with butterflies and thinks vegetables are a conspiracy." That earned a small smile. "Smart kid. Smarter than me." The scotch was smooth, warming. "She asked me yesterday why rich people are sad in movies. Said if she had a lot of money, she'd buy a trampoline and never be sad again." Evelyn laughed, a real laugh this time, unexpected and genuine. A trampoline, not a bad investment strategy. "She's got her priorities straight." The laughter faded, but something had shifted. Evelyn settled onto the couch, kicking off her heels with visible relief. Ryan stayed standing, maintaining some boundary even as others blurred. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a moment. "Sure." "Why did you stay?" "Really? It wasn't the money. You could have politely declined. And it certainly wasn't the scotch." Ryan considered his answer carefully. "You looked like someone who'd spent the whole evening surrounded by people and still felt completely alone. I know what that's like. After your wife died. After, during, before." He turned from the window to face her. "Emma was sick for 18 months, lung cancer, stage 4. The last 6 months, she was in and out of the hospital more than she was home. I'd sit in those waiting rooms surrounded by other families, all of us going through the same nightmare, and I've never felt more isolated in my life. Everyone has advice, nobody has answers, and eventually, people stop asking how you're doing because they don't want to hear the truth." Evelyn was quiet, watching him with those sharp eyes that somehow seemed less intimidating now. "What's the truth?" "That some days I still can't believe she's gone. That I look at Lily and see Emma's smile, her stubbornness, her joy, and it breaks me and heals me at the same time. That I'm terrified I'm screwing up this whole single-parent thing, but I show up every day and try anyway because that's what Emma would have done." He stopped, surprised at his own honesty. "Sorry, you didn't ask for my life story." "No, I asked why you stayed. And you're telling me." She set her glass down. "You stayed because you recognized something. Isolation wearing a successful costume. Something like that. The party tonight. Evelyn's voice went distant again. 200 people celebrating an anniversary I barely remember. They kept talking about the early days, the scrappy startup culture, the risks we took. But I was the only one there who actually lived it. Everyone else came later, after the funding, after the IPO, after it was safe. They tell stories about a history they read in company newsletters. You built it alone. I built it alone, she confirmed, and I've run it alone. Every major decision, every pivot, every crisis, it all comes back to me. The board offers input, executives implement strategy, but at the end of the day, if Apex fails, it's my failure. If it succeeds, it's our success. She laughed bitterly. Collective victory, individual accountability. Ryan sat down in the chair across from her, finally accepting that this wasn't a quick drink anymore. Is that what tonight was about? Reminding you that you're replaceable? Worse. She met his eyes, reminding me that I might have built something so successful that it doesn't need me anymore, that my life's work has outgrown me. Do you believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore. She drew her knees up, suddenly looking smaller, younger, vulnerable in a way that probably no one at that gala had seen. I'm 48 years old. I have a company worth billions, a penthouse I barely live in, and a calendar full of meetings with people who smile to my face and strategize against me behind closed doors. And tonight, receiving that trophy, hearing those speeches, I realized I have no one to call. No one to tell about my day who actually cares about the answer. No one who sees me instead of the position I hold. The words hung in the air between them, raw and honest and impossibly sad. My mother died 3 years ago, Evelyn continued, quieter now. She was the last person who knew me before all this, before Apex, before the money, before I became someone people write think pieces about. She knew the girl who was bad at basketball and good at math, who got nervous before presentations, who wanted to matter. She wiped at her eyes quickly, a gesture that seemed to surprise her. I thought building something important would make me matter. Turns out it just made me successful. Those aren't the same thing. Ryan thought about Emma's final weeks, the conversations they'd had about legacy and meaning. Emma told me once that mattering and being remembered are different. She said mattering is about the people whose lives you touch in small ways, the moments that shift something in them, even if they never know your name. Being remembered is just being talked about. Did she matter? To me? To Lily? Absolutely. Ryan's throat tightened. To the nurses she worked with, the patients she cared about, the friends who knew her, yes. She mattered. But she was also terrified of being forgotten, wanted to leave something behind that proved she was here. Did she? She left Lily, and she left me different than I was before I knew her. Better, I think, though some days it's hard to tell. He paused. She also left me a letter. I'm supposed to open it when Lily turns 18. Emma said it was for both of us, reminders of who she was, who we are, what matters when everything else falls away. Evelyn was crying now, silent tears tracking mascara down her face. She didn't try to hide it, didn't apologize for it. I don't have that. No letter, no child, no person who knows me well enough to write down what matters. If I disappeared tomorrow, the company would continue. The board would elect a new CEO. The stock price might dip for a quarter, then recover. And that would be my legacy. A brief disruption in quarterly earnings. That's not true. Isn't it? She stood abruptly, pacing to the window. Name one person whose life is fundamentally better because they know me personally, not because they work for my company or invested early or benefit from our technology, because they know me. Ryan didn't have an answer, not one that would help. I sacrificed everything for success, Evelyn said to the glass, her reflection ghostly and small against the city lights. Every relationship, every possibility of normalcy, every chance at the kind of life you have, coming home to someone who needs you, who loves you without agenda, who cares if you had a good day. I told myself it was worth it, that building something important mattered more than building a life. And now? Now I'm standing in a penthouse that feels like a museum, talking to my driver because he's the first person in years who's asked me a real question. She turned back to him. Does that seem like a successful life to you? Ryan chose his words carefully, It seems like an honest moment in a successful life. Those aren't the same thing either. No. She returned to the couch, exhaustion evident in every movement. They're not. They sat in silence for a while, the city humming below them, the snow falling steadily outside. Ryan checked his phone. Nearly midnight. He should go, should get home, check on Lily, maintain the boundaries that kept his life stable and predictable. But something kept him in that chair. Can I tell you something? Evelyn's voice was barely above a whisper now. Something I've never said out loud? Okay. I'm scared. The words came out broken, like they'd been held too long. I'm scared that this is all there is, that I've spent my entire adult life building towards something that turns out to be empty, that I've optimized everything except the things that actually matter, and I don't know how to fix it because I don't remember how to be anything except this. She gestured at herself, the designer gown, the perfect posture, the controlled expression that was finally cracking. I don't know how to be small again, how to want small things, care about small moments. I've trained myself to think in quarters and market share and strategic positioning, and now I'm wondering if I've thought myself right out of being human. Ryan set his glass down. You're being human right now. Am I? Or am I performing vulnerability because that's what the moment requires? How do I know the difference anymore? Because performed vulnerability doesn't hurt this much. He leaned forward. And because you're asking questions that don't have easy answers. Performances have scripts. This doesn't. Evelyn covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. I don't want to be alone anymore. I don't want to wake up in this beautiful empty apartment and face another day of strategic conversations and calculated decisions. I don't want to be Evelyn Grant, CEO. I just want to be someone. Someone who matters to someone. Ryan stood slowly and moved to sit beside her, not touching, just present. You're someone right now, right here, and you matter. To who? To you? She looked up, eyes red and searching. You're being kind because that's who you are. But tomorrow I'm still the CEO, and you're still the driver, and this conversation becomes another story you tell about a weird night at work. No. The word came out firmer than he intended. Tomorrow, you're still someone who was honest about being scared. And I'm still someone who listened because he remembered what that felt like. That doesn't change just because the sun comes up. You don't know me. I know you're braver than you think. You asked me to stay when it would have been easier to pretend everything was fine. You told me the truth when you could have hidden behind success stories and company achievements. That takes courage. Or desperation. Sometimes those look the same. He thought about the nights after Emma died, calling crisis lines just to hear another human voice, showing up at grief groups and sitting in silence because words felt impossible. Asking for help when you're drowning isn't weakness, it's survival. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Then, will you stay? Not for another drink, just stay. I don't want to be alone tonight. Every alarm in Ryan's head went off simultaneously. This was how boundaries dissolved, how complicated became catastrophic, how a single father's careful stability crumbled. He should say no, should cite professionalism, propriety, the dozen reasons why this was a terrible idea. But he looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who'd spent 20 years being strong, being brilliant, being exactly what everyone needed her to be. And tonight, for just a few hours, she wanted to be allowed to break. He thought about Lily, about the man he wanted to be for her, the example he wanted to set. Kindness, Emma used to say, isn't just about the easy moments. It's about choosing compassion when it costs you something. I'll stay, he said quietly. But I'm sleeping on the couch. I'm leaving at 6, and this doesn't happen again. Not because I don't care, but because you're vulnerable right now, and I won't take advantage of that. Something in her face crumpled with relief. Thank you. And tomorrow, when you've had sleep and space to think, you're going to consider talking to someone, a therapist, a friend, someone who can help you figure out what comes next. Because I can sit with you tonight, but I can't fix what's broken. Nobody can except you. I know. She stood, steadier now. The guest room is down the hall. There are blankets in the closet, bathroom attached. Make yourself comfortable. The couch is fine. The guest room has a lock on the door and probably makes more sense for both of us. She managed a small smile. I'm asking you to stay because I don't want to be alone. Not because I'm asking for anything else. Ryan nodded, understanding. 6 a.m. I leave at 6. 6 a.m., she agreed. He found the guest room exactly where she'd indicated, pristine, impersonal, with windows overlooking the sleeping city. He texted Mrs. Chen. Running late, home by 6:30. Everything okay? The reply came immediately. Fine here. Lily talked about butterflies for 20 minutes before bed. Take your time. Ryan set his phone down and sat on the edge of the bed, thinking about choices and consequences, kindness and complications. In the living room, he could hear Evelyn moving around, the soft sounds of someone trying to settle after a crisis. He'd made his choice. For better or worse, he'd chosen to stay. Now he just had to hope that choosing compassion wouldn't cost him everything. The city lights painted patterns across the ceiling as Ryan lay awake, thinking about vulnerability and courage, isolation and connection. Somewhere in the penthouse, Evelyn Grant was probably lying awake too, wondering if honesty had been brave or foolish. Neither of them knew that by morning, a single photograph would turn one quiet act of kindness into a scandal that would threaten to destroy them both. But tonight, in the darkness before everything changed, two lonely people had simply chosen not to be alone. And sometimes, that was the most dangerous choice of all. Ryan's phone alarm shattered the silence at 5:30. He silenced it quickly, disoriented for a moment by the unfamiliar ceiling, the expensive sheets, the floor-to-ceiling windows revealing a city still dark but beginning to stir. Then memory flooded back. The gala, the drive, Evelyn's raw confession, his choice to stay. He sat up, running his hands through his hair, and checked his messages. Nothing urgent. Mrs. Chen had sent a photo around midnight, Lily asleep, clutching the stuffed elephant Emma had given her the day she was born. The sight made his chest tighten with the familiar mixture of love and loss that never quite faded. He dressed quickly in yesterday's clothes, splashed water on his face in the guest bathroom, and stepped quietly into the hallway. The penthouse was silent, early morning light beginning to filter through the massive windows. He should leave now, slip out before Evelyn woke, avoid the awkwardness of morning after conversations that weren't actually morning afters but would feel like them anyway. But as he passed the living room, he saw her. Evelyn sat curled in the corner of the couch, still wearing last night's gown, a laptop balanced on her knees. She looked up as he appeared, and he saw that she hadn't slept at all. "You're up early," she said, voice hoarse. "I told you I'd leave at 6. Need to get home before Lily wakes up." He paused. "You didn't sleep." "Couldn't." She closed the laptop with a decisive click. "Kept thinking about everything I said last night, wondering if I'd completely destroyed whatever professional relationship we had." Ryan moved into the room but stayed standing, maintaining distance. "You were honest. That's not something to regret." "Isn't it?" She set the laptop aside. "I unloaded 20 years of loneliness onto someone who was just trying to be kind. That's not fair to you?" "Fair doesn't matter much when someone's drowning." He checked his watch, 5:45. "What matters is what happens next. What happens next is I thank you for staying, apologize for putting you in an impossible position, and we both pretend this never happened." Her voice had shifted back toward control, the CEO reassembling herself in real time. "You go back to driving, I go back to running a company, and we maintain appropriate professional boundaries." "Is that what you want?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "Does it matter what I want?" "It's the only thing that matters." Ryan crossed his arms. "Last night you told me you were scared of being alone, of optimizing your life into emptiness. This morning you're already retreating back into the performance. So I'm asking, what do you actually want?" Evelyn stood, the gown rustling, and moved to the windows. Dawn was breaking over Manhattan, painting the snow-covered city in shades of pink and gold. "I want to not be terrified of my own honesty. I want to wake up and feel something other than dread about facing another day. I want—" She stopped, shoulders tensing. "I want things I don't know how to have." "Then start small." Ryan joined her at the window, careful to maintain space between them. "You asked me last night what comes next. Here's my answer. You talk to someone. A therapist, a counselor, Someone who can help you figure out why success feels like failure. I can't. The words came out sharp. Do you know what would happen if word got out that Evelyn Grant was seeing a therapist? The board would use it as evidence that I'm unstable. Investors would panic. The media would speculate about my fitness to lead. Then you find someone confidential, someone outside your circle who has no connection to the company. There is no outside my circle. Everyone knows who I am, what I run, what I'm worth. She turned to face him. Last night was the first honest conversation I've had in years, precisely because you have no stake in my company, no agenda beyond basic human decency. That doesn't exist in my world. Ryan thought about the careful walls he'd built around his own life, the way he kept other parents at arm's length, avoided dating, maintained friendly distance from everyone except Mrs. Chen and Lily. Protection felt like isolation when you did it long enough. Then maybe your world needs to expand, he said quietly. Says the man who admitted he hasn't had friends over in years. There was no malice in it, just recognition. We're both good at building walls, Ryan. The difference is you have Lily to keep you human. I have quarterly earnings reports. That's a choice you're making. Is it? Her eyes flashed. You think I chose this? You think I woke up one day and decided to sacrifice everything personal for professional success? No. I think you made 1,000 small choices over 20 years, and each one felt necessary at the time, and now you're standing in the life those choices built, wondering how you got here. He held her gaze. I did the same thing after Emma died. Chose work over grief. Chose Lily's routine over my own healing. Chose safe over authentic because safe meant I could function. And then one day I realized I'd built a life where I was surviving, but not living. What changed? Nothing yet. That's the honest answer. Ryan checked his watch again. 5:53. I'm still building the same walls, making the same choices. But at least now I can see them. That's something. Evelyn was quiet for a long moment, studying him with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who would either judge me for being weak or try to take advantage of it. Not someone who'd stay without wanting anything in return. I'm a single father who drives people for a living. Your vulnerability doesn't threaten me and your success doesn't tempt me. That probably makes me safe in ways most people in your life aren't. Safe, she repeated, testing the word. When's the last time you felt safe? The question landed harder than she probably intended. Ryan thought about it, really thought about it. With Emma. In the hospital, actually, which sounds insane. But she'd just gotten another round of bad news, and we were sitting in her room at 2 a.m, and she told me she wasn't scared of dying. She was scared of me and Lily forgetting how to laugh. And something about that, her worrying about us instead of herself, made me feel like no matter what happened, we'd be okay. Because she'd loved us that much. He swallowed hard. That was the last time. 4 years ago. Evelyn's expression softened. Sounds extraordinary. She was ordinary. That's what made her extraordinary. He smiled slightly. She was a nurse who loved terrible reality TV and couldn't cook to save her life and sang off-key in the shower. But she paid attention. She noticed things. She made people feel seen. Like you did last night. I just listened. No. Evelyn shook her head. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. You set boundaries when taking advantage would have been possible. You treated me like a person instead of a position. That's not just listening, that's caring. Ryan didn't know what to say to that, so he said nothing. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but weighted with things neither of them knew how to articulate. His phone buzzed. Mrs. Chen. Lily's up, asking for you. I need to go. He pulled his keys from his pocket. My daughter's awake. Of course. Evelyn straightened, the CEO posture returning. Thank you for everything. For staying, for listening, for... She trailed off, searching for words. For seeing me. Take care of yourself, Ryan said, and meant it. And think about what I said, about talking to someone. I will. He made it to the door before she spoke again. Ryan? He turned back. If I needed a ride again, not as a client, just as someone who could use a friend. Would you? Yes, he said before she could finish. But let me give you my actual number, not the dispatch line. She pulled out her phone, and he recited the digits, watching her save the contact. It felt significant somehow, this small exchange of information, this acknowledgement that what had happened last night mattered enough to continue in some form. "I won't abuse it," she promised. "I know." And then he left, stepping out into the cold morning air, snow crunching under his feet as he walked to his car. The city was waking up around him, delivery trucks rumbling past, early commuters hurrying toward subway stations, the perpetual motion of Manhattan beginning another day. Ryan drove home on autopilot, his mind replaying the conversation, analyzing his choices, wondering if he'd just complicated his carefully controlled life beyond repair. But when he walked into his apartment and heard Lily's voice calling, "Daddy!" from her bedroom, everything else fell away. "Morning, Butterfly." He scooped her up, pressing a kiss to her wild bedhead. "How'd you sleep?" "Good. Mrs. Chen let me have 2 cookies after you left. Don't tell her I told you." Ryan carried her to the kitchen where Mrs. Chen was already making coffee, her knowing smile suggesting she'd heard everything. "2 cookies, huh?" She asked very politely, Mrs. Chen said, not apologizing. "And it was a special occasion." "What occasion?" "I finished my homework and brushed my teeth without being reminded." Lily beamed with pride. "That's worth 2 cookies." "That's definitely worth 2 cookies." Ryan set her down at the table. "Cereal or eggs?" "Eggs, with cheese." As he cracked eggs into a pan, Mrs. Chen moved beside him, her voice low. "Long night?" "Complicated night." "The good kind of complicated, or the kind that's going to blow up in your face?" Ryan thought about Evelyn's tears, her confession, the raw honesty that had filled her penthouse. "I don't know yet." "Be careful." Mrs. Chen squeezed his shoulder. "You've got a good heart, but you've also got a daughter who needs you stable." "I know." "Do you?" She met his eyes. "Because I've watched you build walls for 4 years, and I've never seen you let anyone close. Now suddenly you come home at 6:30 in the morning with that look on your face, and I'm worried you're about to do something brave and stupid." "What look?" "The look that says you remembered you're human." She poured coffee into his favorite mug, the one Lily had decorated with handprints and the words, "Best Daddy." "I'm not saying don't care about people. I'm saying remember who depends on you first." Ryan nodded, throat tight. Mrs. Chen was right. She was always right. Lily came first. Everything else was secondary. But as he served his daughter breakfast and listened to her chatter about butterflies and the upcoming science fair, a small part of him couldn't stop thinking about Evelyn sitting alone in that massive penthouse, trying to remember how to want small things. The next 3 days passed normally. Ryan drove his usual routes, picked up Lily from school, helped with homework, made dinners that Lily negotiated down to acceptable vegetable quantities. His phone stayed quiet. No calls from unknown numbers, no texts from Evelyn, no indication that their conversation had meant anything beyond that one unusual night. He told himself this was good. Better to let it fade. Maintain the boundaries that kept his life manageable. Evelyn probably regretted the entire evening anyway, had likely woken up the next day mortified by her honesty and relieved that Ryan hadn't tried to leverage it into something inappropriate. But Thursday afternoon, as Ryan waited outside Lily's school, his phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. "This is Evelyn. I took your advice. Found a therapist. First session was today. Wanted to say thank you." Ryan stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. A simple "you're welcome" seemed insufficient, but anything more felt like an invitation to continue a connection that probably shouldn't continue. Before he could decide, Lily came bounding out of the school building, backpack bouncing, her face lit up with excitement. "Daddy, guess what? Miss Rodriguez said my butterfly project was the best in class, and I get to present it at the science fair next week." He pocketed his phone and gave her his full attention. "That's amazing, Butterfly. I'm so proud of you." "Will you come?" "To the fair?" "It's Thursday night at 7. "Of course I'll come. I wouldn't miss it." She hugged him tight, and Ryan breathed in the scent of playground dirt and strawberry shampoo, grounding himself in what mattered most. Lily's science fair, parent-teacher conferences, making sure she knew she was loved and safe in the center of his universe. Everything else could wait. But that night, after Lily was asleep, Ryan finally responded to Evelyn's text. That took courage. How did it go? Her reply came almost immediately, like she'd been waiting. Hard, really hard. But also, relief? I didn't realize how much I needed to say things out loud to someone who had no agenda. Thank you for pushing me toward this. You did the work. I just suggested the direction. Still, it mattered. A pause, then another message. How's Lily? Excited about her science fair next week. Apparently butterflies are fascinating. They are. Transformation, resilience, beauty in change. Smart kid. Ryan smiled at his phone in the darkness of his bedroom. She'd like you. The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times before her response came. I'd like to meet her someday, if that's appropriate. No pressure. And there it was, the question he'd been avoiding thinking about. Was there space in his carefully controlled life for this connection? Could friendship exist between a CEO and her driver without power dynamics destroying it? Did he even want to find out? Let's take it slow, he typed back. Figure out what this is before we involve anyone else. Smart. Boundaries matter. They do. Good night, Ryan. Good night, Evelyn. He set his phone down and stared at the ceiling, feeling the first hairline cracks forming in the walls he'd built. It should have scared him. Maybe it did. But it also felt like the first deep breath he'd taken in 4 years. The following Tuesday, Ryan's supervisor called him into the office before his shift. Marcus was a good guy, ex-military, ran the driving service with efficiency and fairness, never played favorites. But the expression on his face as Ryan entered suggested this wasn't a routine check-in. Close the door, Marcus said. Ryan did. Alarm bells going off. What's wrong? I got a call this morning from Apex Systems' head of security. Marcus leaned back in his chair. They're asking questions about you, about your background, your record, your work history. Why? That's what I want to know. Marcus's eyes narrowed. You drive Evelyn Grant home from that gala last week? Yeah, she requested me specifically. Anything unusual happen? Ryan's mind raced, calculating how much to say, what was relevant, what was private. She was having a rough night. I drove her home. That's it. That's it? Because their security chief spent 20 minutes grilling me about your character, whether you'd ever had complaints, whether you were trustworthy. Marcus folded his arms. Either you did something that spooked them, or you did something that impressed them. Which is it? I don't know. The honest answer. She was upset about something at the gala. Asked me to stay for a bit, make sure she was okay. I did. Then I left. Haven't seen her since. She asked you to stay. Marcus's tone was flat, carefully neutral. In what capacity? As someone who'd listen. Nothing happened, Marcus. I slept in the guest room, left at 6 a.m., went home to my daughter. It was completely appropriate. I believe you. But perception matters more than truth in situations like this. Marcus stood, moving to the window that overlooked the garage where other drivers prepped their vehicles. Evelyn Grant is one of our biggest clients. Her company accounts for 30% of our executive transport revenue. If something happened, or if someone thinks something happened, it could destroy that relationship. And if that relationship goes, jobs go with it. The weight of it settled on Ryan's shoulders. I didn't do anything wrong. I know, but that might not matter. Marcus turned back to him. I need you to be straight with me. Is there anything at all, that could come back and bite us? Any conversation, any moment, any misunderstanding that could be twisted into something inappropriate? Ryan thought about Evelyn crying on her couch, admitting her loneliness, asking him to stay because she couldn't bear to be alone. He thought about the vulnerability in her voice, the trust she'd placed in him, the honesty that had cost her so much pride. No, he said firmly. Nothing happened that either of us should be ashamed of. Marcus studied him for a long moment. All right, but Ryan, be careful. Women like Evelyn Grant exist in a different world than guys like us. Getting too close to that world, even with good intentions, can burn you. I understand. Do you? Marcus's voice softened. Because I've seen good men lose everything trying to help people who couldn't be helped. You've got a kid depending on you. Don't forget that. I won't. But as Ryan left the office and started his shift, anxiety coiled in his gut. Why was Apex's security asking about him? What had changed in the week since he'd left Evelyn's penthouse? And more importantly, was his simple act of kindness about to become something far more complicated? The answer came 3 hours later, in the form of a group text to all company drivers. Effective immediately, all employees are prohibited from engaging in personal relationships with clients outside of professional duties. Any violations will result in immediate termination. This policy is non-negotiable. Ryan stared at the message, reading it 3 times. The timing couldn't be coincidental. Someone at Apex knew about that night. Someone was worried enough to force the driving company's hand on policy changes. His phone buzzed with a private text from Evelyn. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to affect you. What happened? Someone saw you leaving my building that morning. Security footage. My assistant mentioned it to the wrong person. Now the board is asking questions I can't answer without making it worse. Ryan pulled over, heart pounding. What kind of questions? The kind that suggest inappropriate conduct, the kind that make me look reckless and you look opportunistic. I've tried to explain, but explanations just feed the speculation. So what do? The typing indicator appeared and disappeared multiple times. Finally, we stopped communicating. We maintained strict professional boundaries. We let it blow over. And throw away a friendship because people are gossiping? It's not friendship they're worried about. Her next message came quickly. They think I'm compromised, that you're taking advantage of my position, that I'm having some kind of breakdown that's affecting my judgment. Ryan gripped the steering wheel, anger rising. That's insane. That's corporate politics. One photo of you leaving my building at dawn, and suddenly 20 years of credibility doesn't matter. I'm the lonely CEO who got taken in by the charming driver. You're the opportunist who saw a chance and took it. A pause. Neither of which is true, but truth is irrelevant when the narrative is already written. So we just accept it? We survive it. You keep your job. I keep my company. And we both pretend that night never happened. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to fight against the injustice of it, wanted to demand that the truth should matter. But he thought about Lily's science fair, about rent and groceries, and the fragile stability he'd built for them. He thought about Marcus's warning, about Mrs. Chen's concern, about the reality that sometimes survival meant swallowing pride. Okay, he typed. We stopped communicating. I'm sorry, Ryan. You deserved better than this. So did you. He waited for another message, but none came. Just silence, and the weight of understanding that kindness could be punished as easily as it could be rewarded. That night, Ryan sat through Lily's bedtime routine on autopilot, teeth brushing, story reading, butterfly questions answered with half his attention. When she finally fell asleep, he sat at his kitchen table and stared at nothing, feeling the walls he'd briefly allowed to crack rebuilding themselves brick by brick. Mrs. Chen found him there an hour later, letting herself in with the key he'd given her for emergencies. You look like hell, she said bluntly. Feel like it too. She made tea without asking, setting a cup in front of him and settling into the chair across from him. Talk. So he did. He told her everything, the gala, the conversation, Evelyn's breakdown, his choice to stay, the fallout now threatening both their lives. Mrs. Chen listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When he finished, she sipped her tea thoughtfully. You did the right thing. Did I? Because it feels like I just made everything worse. You chose compassion when someone needed it. That's never wrong. She set her cup down. What's wrong is a world that punishes people for being human, but that's not your fault. It might cost me my job. Then we'll figure it out. You've survived worse. Have I? Ryan's voice cracked. Because right now it feels like I can't win. If I keep myself safe and isolated, I'm teaching Lily that caring about people is dangerous. But if I open up, if I try to connect, I risk the stability she needs. How do I choose between those things? Mrs. Chen reached across the table and took his hand. You choose by remembering that Lily needs a father who's alive, not just surviving. Yes, stability matters, but so does showing her that kindness is worth the risk, that relationships matter even when they're complicated, that being human means sometimes getting hurt but staying open anyway. Emma used to say something similar. Emma was smart. Mrs. Chen squeezed his hand. She'd be proud of what you did, and she'd tell you to keep fighting for what's right, even when it's hard. Ryan nodded, throat too tight for words. Get some sleep, Mrs. Chen said gently. Tomorrow will still be there, problems and all. But so will Lily. So will I. So will whatever courage you need to face what comes next. She left quietly, and Ryan sat alone in the darkness, thinking about choices and consequences, about the price of caring in a world that preferred isolation to risk. He didn't know then that the worst was yet to come, that a single photograph would soon surface, context stripped away, transforming one quiet night into a scandal that would threaten to destroy everything he'd built. But in that moment, sitting in his small kitchen with cold tea and heavy thoughts, Ryan made a decision. Whatever came next, he wouldn't apologize for choosing kindness. He wouldn't regret staying when someone needed him, even if it cost him everything. Because some things mattered more than safety, and teaching his daughter that truth was one of them. The photograph appeared on a gossip blog at 7:43 on a Wednesday morning. Ryan was pouring cereal for Lily when his phone started buzzing. Not the occasional text or email, but a constant vibration that suggested something had gone catastrophically wrong. He checked the screen. 17 missed calls, 32 text messages, all in the last 10 minutes. Daddy, you're spilling. Lily pointed at the cereal overflowing from her bowl onto the table. Ryan set the box down with shaking hands. Sorry, Butterfly, let me clean that up. But his phone kept buzzing, and dread was pooling in his stomach like ice water. He opened the messages. The first was from Marcus, timestamp 7:45. Call me immediately. The second was from a number he didn't recognize. Is it true? Did you really sleep with Evelyn Grant? The third contained a link. Ryan's finger hovered over it, part of him already knowing what he'd find but needing to see it anyway. He clicked. The blog post loaded with a headline in screaming caps. Apex CEO's secret affair with company driver. Photos exclusive. Below it, a photograph taken from a distance but unmistakably clear. Ryan leaving Evelyn's building at dawn, still in his suit from the night before, looking exactly like a man sneaking out after an illicit encounter. The article was worse than the photo. It painted Evelyn as a lonely executive having a breakdown, Ryan as an opportunistic employee taking advantage. It cited anonymous sources claiming the affair had been going on for months, that Ryan had been bragging about it to other drivers, that Evelyn's recent erratic behavior at board meetings made sense now given her inappropriate relationship. Every word was either a lie or a distortion, but the photo was real, and in the court of public opinion, that was all that mattered. Daddy? Lily's voice was small, worried. Why do you look scared? Ryan forced his face into something resembling calm. I'm not scared, Butterfly, just surprised. Eat your cereal. I need to make a phone call. He stepped into his bedroom and called Marcus. The line picked up on the first ring. Tell me it's not true. Marcus's voice was tight, angry. Tell me you didn't sleep with Evelyn Grant. I didn't sleep with her. Nothing happened. Ryan kept his voice low, aware of Lily in the next room. I stayed because she was having a crisis. I slept in the guest room. I left at 6 a.m. That's the whole truth. That's not what the article says. The article is lying. The photo isn't lying. And right now that photo is being shared across every social media platform, every business news site, every gossip forum. I've had 3 reporters call the office already asking for comment. 3. At 7 in the morning, Ryan's grip tightened on the phone. What do we do? We? Marcus's laugh was bitter. There is no we anymore, Ryan. The company's issuing a statement distancing itself from you, effective immediately. You're suspended without pay pending investigation. Investigation into what? I didn't do anything wrong. You got photographed leaving a client's residence at dawn looking guilty as hell. Whether you did anything or not doesn't matter. The optics are a disaster, and this company can't afford to be associated with a scandal involving our biggest client. So you're throwing me under the bus. I'm protecting 17 other drivers who need their jobs. Marcus's voice softened slightly. Look, I believe you, I do, but this is bigger than what I believe. The story's already out there, it's growing, and the only way to contain it is to show consequences. You're the consequence. I have a daughter. Ryan heard the desperation in his own voice and hated it. I can't afford to be unemployed. I have rent, bills, her school. Then you should have thought about that before you put yourself in this position. I was being a decent human being, and look where that got you. Marcus exhaled heavily. I'm sorry, Ryan, I really am, but my hands are tied. Don't come in today, don't contact any clients, don't speak to the media, just lay low and let this blow over. The line went dead. Ryan stood frozen in his bedroom, phone still pressed to his ear, the weight of catastrophe crushing down on him. Suspended without pay, reputation destroyed, a daughter to support and no income to support her with, all because he'd chosen kindness over self-preservation. A knock on his door. Mrs. Chen's voice. Ryan, I saw the news. Can I come in? He opened the door. Mrs. Chen stood there with her tablet, the same article pulled up on her screen, her expression a mixture of sympathy and I told you so concern. Is Lily eating breakfast? She doesn't know anything yet. Mrs. Chen stepped inside and closed the door. What happened? The truth. Ryan told her again, the same story he'd told Marcus, the same truth that apparently didn't matter anymore. Mrs. Chen listened, her face growing darker with each word. This is character assassination, she said when he finished. They're destroying you to protect her. I don't think Evelyn wants this. Then where is she? Where's her statement defending you? Mrs. Chen held up the tablet. This article quotes anonymous sources at Apex calling you an opportunist. Her own company is feeding this narrative while she stays silent. Ryan's phone buzzed again. Another message from an unknown number. How much did she pay you to keep quiet? He turned the phone off completely, unable to handle any more. I need to figure out what to do. How to fix this? You can't fix this, not alone. Mrs. Chen set her tablet down. You need a lawyer. You need someone who can fight back against these lies. I can't afford a lawyer. Then you need Evelyn Grant to tell the truth publicly, because right now you're taking all the damage while she hides behind corporate PR. The words stung because they were true. Where was Evelyn in all this? Why wasn't she defending him, setting the record straight, using her power to stop the narrative before it destroyed them both? His turned-off phone sat on the dresser, silent but somehow still accusing. Ryan thought about turning it back on, about calling Evelyn directly, demanding she fix what her world had broken. But what would that accomplish? She'd already told him they needed to stop communicating. She'd already chosen her company over their friendship. Maybe she'd made the right choice. Maybe he was naive for thinking anything else was possible. I need to get Lily to school, Ryan said finally. Pretend everything's normal for as long as I can, Mrs. Chen studied him with the expression she reserved for particularly foolish decisions. You can't hide this from her forever. I know, but I can hide it from her today. Getting Lily ready for school was an exercise in performing normalcy. Ryan packed her lunch, checked her homework, asked about her butterfly project with enthusiasm he didn't feel. Lily chattered away, oblivious to the catastrophe unfolding around them, and Ryan clung to that obliviousness like a life raft. But when they arrived at the school, reality crashed back in. Other parents stared. Some whispered to each other, phones out, eyes darting between their screens and Ryan's face. A few turned away deliberately, gathering their children closer as if moral failure was contagious. Ryan felt the weight of their judgment, the instant reassessment of his character based on a headline and a photograph stripped of context. Daddy, why is everyone looking at us? Lily's hand tightened in his. They're not, Butterfly. It's your imagination. But it wasn't, and they both knew it. Sarah Martinez, another parent whose daughter was in Lily's class, approached with her phone visible. The article clearly pulled up on screen. Ryan, I wanted to ask, is this true? The thing with Evelyn Grant? No. The word came out harder than he intended. Nothing happened. It's all lies. Sarah's expression suggested she'd already made up her mind. It's just that Lily and Emma play together, and I need to think about what kind of influences. What kind of influences? Ryan's voice rose. I'm the same father I was yesterday. The same person. Nothing about me has changed except that someone decided to lie about me publicly. There's a photo, Ryan. A photo of me leaving a building. That's all. Not a photo of anything inappropriate because nothing inappropriate happened. Sarah took a step back, defensive now. I'm just trying to protect my daughter. From what? From me? I've known Emma for 3 years. I've driven her to play dates, helped at birthday parties, chaperoned field trips. But one false article and suddenly I'm dangerous? You're upset. I understand. But until this gets cleared up, it is cleared up. I'm telling you the truth right now. The internet says something different. Sarah's voice had gone cold. And I have to make choices based on what's best for my child. She walked away, leaving Ryan standing there with Lily's hand still clutched in his, feeling the foundation of his carefully built life crumbling beneath his feet. Daddy, what's wrong with Mrs. Martinez? Lily looked up at him with confused eyes. Why was she being mean? Ryan knelt down to her level, forcing a smile he didn't feel. She's not being mean, Butterfly. She's just confused about something. It'll be okay. Promise? The word caught in his throat. He'd promised Emma he'd take care of Lily, keep her safe, give her a good life. He'd promised himself he'd be the father she deserved, the example she needed. And now everything he'd built was collapsing because he'd chosen to stay with someone who needed help. Promise, he lied. Now go learn something amazing, okay? Lily hugged him tight and ran toward the school entrance, backpack bouncing, still innocent of how thoroughly their world had just been destroyed. Ryan watched until she disappeared inside, then walked back to his car through a gauntlet of stares and whispers. His phone buzzed the moment he turned it back on. Not messages this time, but a call from a number he didn't recognize. He almost declined, but something made him answer. Mr. Cole? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. This is Jennifer Walsh from the New York Register. I'm doing a story on your relationship with Evelyn Grant, and I'd love to get your side of... Ryan hung up. The phone immediately rang again. Different number, same request. He blocked it. Another call. He turned the phone off again and drove home in silence, trying to figure out how to survive what came next. Mrs. Chen was waiting in his apartment, having let herself in with her key. She'd made coffee, set out cookies he didn't want, and had her laptop open with what looked like a legal document on screen. I called my nephew, she said without preamble. He's a lawyer. Not the kind you need, but he knows people. He's making calls. I can't afford... Shut up about money. Mrs. Chen's tone left no room for argument. This is about justice, about truth, about making sure Lily doesn't grow up thinking her father was destroyed by lies without fighting back. Ryan sank into a chair, exhausted beyond measure. What if fighting back makes it worse? What if I can't win? Then you lose trying instead of losing by surrender. She turned the laptop toward him. Look at this. Comments on the article, hundreds of them. Some are awful, calling you every name you can imagine. But some... She scrolled down. Some are questioning the narrative, asking why there's only one photo, wondering where the evidence is. People aren't as stupid as the media assumes. Ryan scanned the comments. She was right. Mixed in with the vitriol were voices of skepticism. One photo proves nothing. Where's the actual evidence? This smells like a hit piece. Small voices, maybe, but not silent. It doesn't matter what strangers on the internet think. Ryan pushed the laptop away. What matters is that I'm suspended, my reputation is destroyed, and Evelyn Grant is letting it happen. Then make her stop letting it happen. How? She made it clear we can't communicate. She chose her company over everything else. Mrs. Chen fixed him with a look that had intimidated better men than him. Did she? Or did she make a scared decision in the moment that she's regretting now? You won't know unless you ask. Asking means breaking the boundary she set. Asking means possibly making everything worse. Everything is already worse. It can't get much more destroyed than it is right now. She stood, gathering her things. I'm going to pick up Lily from school today. You're going to sit here, figure out what you actually want to fight for, and decide if you're brave enough to fight for it. Emma didn't marry a coward. Don't become one now that she's gone. The words hit like a slap, sharp and necessary. Mrs. Chen left without waiting for a response, and Ryan sat alone in his apartment, surrounded by the ruins of his life, forced to confront the hardest question. What was he willing to risk to make this right? His phone, still turned off, sat on the table like an accusation. Inside it were messages he didn't want to read, calls he didn't want to answer, and possibly, just possibly, a text from Evelyn that might change everything or nothing at all. Ryan picked it up, turned it on, and watched the notifications flood in. Dozens of messages. Hundreds of emails. Voicemails from numbers he'd never seen. The internet had decided he was either a villain or a victim, and everyone wanted a piece of the story. But buried in the chaos was a single text from Evelyn sent 2 hours ago. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I'm trying to fix it. Please don't give up." Ryan stared at those words, searching for meaning, for intention, for any hint of what trying to fix it actually meant. Another message appeared as he watched. "I know you can't respond. I know I told you not to contact me. But you deserve to know. I'm not hiding. I'm not letting this stand. Trust me a little longer. Trust." The word felt impossible under the circumstances. How could he trust someone who'd stayed silent while the world tore him apart? How could he believe promises from someone whose company was actively destroying his reputation? But then he thought about that night in her penthouse, the raw honesty, the desperate loneliness, the courage it had taken for her to admit she was drowning. That woman wouldn't abandon him. That woman would fight. The question was whether that woman still existed, or if the CEO had swallowed her whole again. Ryan typed a response, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. What could he say that wouldn't make things worse? What words could possibly bridge the gap between their worlds? Finally, he settled on simple truth. "I'm still here, but I don't know how much longer I can hold on." He hit send before he could second-guess himself, then immediately regretted it. Vulnerability as currency, honesty as weapon. Everything he said could be twisted, used, turned into more ammunition against them both. His phone rang. Not a text this time, but an actual call. Evelyn's name on the screen. Ryan's thumb hovered over the answer button. This could be the beginning of fighting back, or it could be the final mistake that destroyed what little he had left. Either way, there was no going back once he answered. He took a breath and accepted the call. "Ryan." Her voice was strained, exhausted, nothing like the controlled CEO he'd driven dozens of times. "Are you somewhere private?" "My apartment. Alone." "Good. Listen carefully. In 2 hours, Apex is holding an emergency all-hands meeting. Every employee, every department, mandatory attendance. I'm going to address this situation publicly." "What are you going to say?" "The truth? All of it. What happened that night, why you stayed, what the photo actually shows versus what people are assuming." She paused. "It's going to be uncomfortable, personal. It will probably damage my reputation further. But I won't let you take the fall for my breakdown." Ryan's throat tightened. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do. Because you were right. Kindness shouldn't be punished, and I won't survive becoming the kind of person who destroys someone for caring about me. Your board will fight you on this. Your PR team will tell you it's a terrible idea." "They already have. I'm doing it anyway." Her voice hardened with determination. "I spent 20 years building a company, but if that company requires me to sacrifice my integrity to protect it, then maybe it's not worth protecting. Evelyn, I need you to do something for me. Something hard." "What?" "Don't watch the meeting. Don't read the coverage. Don't subject yourself to more speculation and judgment." She took a shaky breath. "Just trust that I'm fighting for both of us. And when this is over, when the truth is out there, we'll figure out what comes next together. And if the truth doesn't matter, if people believe what they want to believe anyway, then at least we'll know we tried, that we stood up and refused to let lies define us." A pause. "You taught me that, actually. That night. You showed me that being vulnerable takes more courage than being powerful. Now I'm going to prove I learned the lesson." Ryan looked around his small apartment. The photos of Emma on the wall, Lily's artwork covering the refrigerator, the modest life he'd built from grief and determination. He thought about what he stood to lose, what he'd already lost, what fighting back might cost them both. "Okay," he said quietly. "I trust you." "Thank you." Relief flooded her voice. "This isn't over, Ryan. Not by a long shot. But it's about to get a lot more honest." She hung up, leaving Ryan alone with 2 hours of uncertainty and a fragile thread of hope he didn't quite dare to hold on to. He tried to follow her instructions, tried not to obsess over what was happening at Apex, what Evelyn was saying, how the world was reacting. But the not knowing was its own torture, each minute stretching into an eternity of speculation and fear. Mrs. Chen texted at 1:30. "Something's happening. The news sites are going crazy. Call me when you can." Ryan ignored it. Evelyn had asked him to trust her, to stay away from the noise. He could do that. He could give her this much. But at 2:15, his phone rang with a number he recognized, Marcus from the driving company. "Ryan, you need to see this." Marcus's voice was strange, uncertain. "Evelyn Grant just held a press conference. She's defending you, aggressively. Security footage, timeline, everything. She's calling out the blog post as defamation and threatening legal action." Ryan's heart hammered. "What did she say?" "That you acted with complete professionalism and integrity. That she personally requested your presence that night because she was having a mental health crisis. That the company's anonymous sources were speaking without authorization and will face consequences." Marcus paused. "She's offering you your job back, with a raise, and a formal apology from our company for suspending you without due process." The words didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. People like Evelyn Grant didn't sacrifice their carefully crafted images to defend their drivers. They protected themselves, their companies, their positions of power. "Is this real?" Ryan asked. "I'm watching it live right now. She's taking questions from employees, from media, from everyone. She's not backing down." Marcus's voice softened. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I should have believed you. I should have fought for you instead of protecting the company. I was wrong." Ryan didn't know what to say to that. The apology felt important, but also insufficient. Too little offered too late. "Can I come back to work?" "Immediately. Tomorrow if you want. With full back pay for the suspension and a guarantee that this won't affect your record." Marcus hesitated. "She's also asking if you'd be willing to meet with her, privately, to discuss what comes next." What comes next? The phrase hung in the air, weighted with possibility and danger in equal measure. "Tell her yes," Ryan said before he could overthink it. "Tell her I'll meet with her." "When?" "Tonight, after I put my daughter to bed. She deserves to know that her father didn't just survive this. He stood for something worth defending." Marcus agreed and hung up, leaving Ryan alone with the realization that everything had just shifted again. Not back to normal, that was impossible now, but forward into something new, uncertain, and potentially transformative. Mrs. Chen arrived with Lily at 3:30, both of them chattering excitedly about butterflies and the science fair and completely oblivious to the revolution that had just occurred in Ryan's life. He let them talk, soaking in the normalcy of his daughter's voice, the simple joy of her presence. Later, after dinner and homework and the careful ritual of bedtime, Ryan sat on the edge of Lily's bed and smoothed her hair back from her forehead. "Butterfly, I need to tell you something. Some people said not nice things about Daddy this week. Things that weren't true." Lily's eyes went wide. "Like lies?" "Exactly like lies. And it was scary for a while, but today someone very brave told everyone the truth, and now the lies don't have power anymore." "Who was brave?" Ryan thought about Evelyn standing in front of her entire company, sacrificing her carefully protected image to defend someone most people thought didn't matter. A friend, someone who remembered that telling the truth is more important than looking perfect. "Mrs. Chen says you're the bravest person she knows." "Mrs. Chen is very kind, but I'm not the brave one this time. I just tried to do the right thing and got scared when it went wrong." Lily considered this seriously. "But you didn't stop doing the right thing, even when you were scared." Out of the mouths of children, Ryan kissed her forehead. "No, Butterfly, I didn't stop. And I won't." "Good. Because Emma says in my dreams that being brave means doing good things even when it's hard." Ryan's chest constricted. "You dream about Mommy?" "Sometimes. She tells me to be good and that she loves us both very much and that you're doing great, even when you're sad." Tears burned behind Ryan's eyes. "She'd be proud of you, so proud. She's proud of you too. She told me." Ryan held his daughter close, breathing in her butterfly dreams and impossible wisdom, and felt the pieces of himself that had shattered over the past few days beginning to reassemble into something stronger than before. At 8 o'clock, Mrs. Chen arrived to stay with Lily. Ryan dressed carefully, not his driver's uniform, not casual clothes, but something in between. He was meeting Evelyn as an equal tonight, not as an employee. The distinction mattered. The address she'd sent wasn't her penthouse, but a small coffee shop in Brooklyn, quiet and anonymous and far from the Manhattan towers where power played its games. Ryan arrived first, chose a table in the back, and waited. Evelyn appeared at 8:15, dressed simply in jeans and a sweater, her hair down, no makeup, looking more human than he'd ever seen her. She spotted him and crossed the nearly empty cafe with uncertain steps. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." They sat across from each other, two people who'd been through fire together and somehow survived, neither quite sure what happened next. "Thank you," Ryan said finally. "For telling the truth, for fighting when you didn't have to." "I had to." Evelyn's hands wrapped around the coffee cup she'd ordered. "Not for PR, not for damage control, for me, because I couldn't become the person who let someone suffer for showing me kindness. It cost you. Your privacy, your image, your control over the narrative. It cost me less than staying silent would have." She met his eyes. "I watched what they did to you, the articles, the assumptions, the character assassination. And I realized that all the power I'd spent 20 years building was worthless if I couldn't use it to protect the people who mattered. I'm just your driver." "No." The word came out fierce. "You're the person who stayed when I was drowning. Who set boundaries because you respected both of us too much to take advantage? Who showed me that integrity still exists in a world that rewards manipulation?" She leaned forward. "You're not just anything, Ryan. You're proof that kindness and strength can coexist, and I won't let the world destroy that." Ryan felt something shift in his chest. Not love, not yet, but recognition. The understanding that they'd both been lonely in their own ways, both trying to survive in worlds that didn't value what they actually needed. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we figure out what truth looks like going forward." Evelyn smiled slightly. "I defended you today. Tomorrow, my therapist and I are going to work on why it took a crisis for me to remember how to be honest. And someday, maybe not soon, but someday, I'm going to build a life that doesn't require me to choose between success and humanity." "That sounds like a good plan. What about you? What's your plan?" Ryan thought about Lily, about the job he'd gotten back, about the walls he'd built that were finally starting to come down. "I'm going to keep showing up for my daughter, keep being the father she deserves, and maybe," he hesitated, "maybe I'm going to start believing that I deserve good things too, that surviving isn't the same as living." "Emma would want that for you." "Yeah, she would." They sat together in comfortable silence, two people who'd found each other in crisis and were choosing, deliberately, to stay found. The world outside still judged them, still speculated, still whispered about scandal and impropriety. But inside that quiet coffee shop, truth was enough. For now, it had to be. The coffee between them had gone cold by the time Evelyn spoke again, her voice carrying a weight that suggested she'd been building toward this moment throughout their entire conversation. "There's something else I need to tell you, something that happened after the press conference." She rotated her cup slowly, not quite meeting his eyes. "The board called an emergency session. 3 hours of them explaining why my honesty was a liability, why defending you was poor judgment, why my emotional state proves I'm unfit to lead." Ryan felt his stomach drop. "They're trying to remove you. They're trying. Whether they succeed depends on the next few weeks." She finally looked up, and he saw the exhaustion carved into her features. "My CFO presented a motion of no confidence. Said my behavior demonstrates instability that puts shareholder value at risk. Half the board nodded along like he was making perfect sense." "What did you say?" "I told them that if defending an innocent person from character assassination makes me unstable, then instability is a virtue they should consider embracing." A bitter smile crossed her face. "That didn't go over well. My general counsel actually laughed, said I was proving their point." Ryan leaned back, processing the implications. "You sacrificed your position to defend me." "I sacrificed nothing." The words came out sharp, defensive. "I made a choice about what kind of leader I want to be. If the board can't accept that, then maybe I'm leading the wrong company." "Evelyn, don't." She held up a hand. "Don't thank me again. Don't apologize for existing. Don't carry guilt that belongs to other people. You asked what happens now. Here's what happens. I fight for my company because I built it, and I'm not handing it over to people who think profit matters more than principle. And you go back to your life knowing that at least one person with power used it for something decent. The fierceness in her voice reminded Ryan why she'd succeeded in the first place. This wasn't the broken woman from that night in her penthouse. This was someone who'd remembered how to fight. "How can I help?" he asked. "You can't. This is a boardroom battle, and dragging you further into it only gives them more ammunition." She softened slightly. "But I appreciate the offer. It's more than most people in my world would make." Ryan thought about Marcus's apology, about Sarah Martinez pulling her daughter away from his, about the internet strangers who'd convicted him without evidence. Your world and mine aren't that different. People protect themselves first. Everything else is secondary. Is that what you believe? It's what I've learned. Evelyn considered this, her sharp eyes searching his face for something he couldn't name. You stayed with me that night. You could have walked away, protected yourself, avoided all of this, but you stayed because someone needed help. That's not secondary thinking, Ryan. That's primary. Look where it got me. It got you here, having coffee with someone who finally understands that success without humanity is just expensive loneliness. She gathered her things, preparing to leave. I know you can't see it yet, but what you did mattered. It changed something in me. Made me remember that power is worthless if you're too afraid to use it for good. Ryan watched her stand, this brilliant woman who'd built an empire and nearly lost herself in it, and felt the strange sensation of roles reversing. He'd helped her that night. Now she was trying to help him see his own worth. Be careful, he said quietly. With the board, with the fight ahead. Don't sacrifice everything just to prove a point. Advice from my driver? But there was warmth in her voice, not condescension. Advice from a friend who knows what it's like to lose what matters most. Evelyn's expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through the determined facade. I won't lose this. I can't afford to. Then fight smart, not just hard. And remember, you're not alone anymore. She nodded once, an acknowledgement of connection neither of them quite knew how to name yet, and left. Ryan sat in the empty coffee shop for another 20 minutes, thinking about courage and consequences, about the difference between surviving and living that he'd mentioned to Evelyn without fully understanding it himself. His phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen. Lily's asleep. Take your time. And Ryan, I'm proud of you. The words settled something in his chest. Mrs. Chen had been warning him about getting involved, about risking his stability, about remembering his priorities. But she'd also taught him that Lily needed a father who was alive, not just surviving. Maybe this, all of this, was what being alive looked like. Messy, complicated, scary, but real. When Ryan arrived home, Mrs. Chen was waiting with tea and questions in her eyes. He told her about the meeting, about Evelyn's board crisis, about the uncertain path forward for both of them. She's fighting for her company, Mrs. Chen said when he finished. What are you fighting for? The question stopped him. What do you mean? I mean, you got your job back, your name cleared, your reputation restored. You could walk away now, keep your distance from Evelyn Grant and her corporate drama, go back to the safe life you built. But you're not going to do that, are you? Ryan thought about Evelyn sitting across from him, raw and honest and determined. He thought about the loneliness in her voice when she talked about her penthouse, about the courage it had taken to stand in front of her company and tell an uncomfortable truth. He thought about Lily asking why he never had friends over, why he never seemed happy even when he smiled. No, he admitted, I'm not going to walk away. Why not? Because she matters. Because walking away now would be choosing safety over integrity. Because... He stopped, searching for words. Because Emma told me once that we don't get to choose when love shows up or what form it takes. We only get to choose whether we're brave enough to recognize it. Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose. Love? I don't know. Maybe. Probably not yet. But something. Ryan ran his hands through his hair. Something that feels like it could matter if we let it. And I'm tired of being too scared to let things matter. And Lily? How does she fit into this something? Lily is everything, always. Ryan's voice was firm. But part of being everything for her is showing her what it looks like to be human, to care about people, to take risks for things that matter, to build a life instead of just maintaining one. Mrs. Chen smiled, the expression carrying approval and concern in equal measure. Emma would like this version of you, scared but honest, cautious but willing. You think so? I know so. She told me once, before she got really sick, that her biggest fear wasn't dying. It was you forgetting how to live after she was gone. Mrs. Chen stood, squeezing his shoulder as she passed. Don't prove her fear right, Ryan. Whatever this becomes with Evelyn Grant, don't let fear make your choices. She left him alone with his thoughts and cold tea, the weight of Emma's memory mixing with the possibility of something new, something undefined, something terrifying and necessary in ways he couldn't fully articulate. The next morning, Ryan returned to work. Marcus met him in the garage with a formal apology and an envelope containing his back pay, plus what looked like a substantial bonus. The other drivers welcomed him back with handshakes and carefully neutral expressions, solidarity mixed with residual uncertainty about what had actually happened. Ryan didn't explain, didn't defend himself or rehash the truth. He just got behind the wheel and drove, finding comfort in the familiar rhythms of traffic and destinations, in being invisible again after days of unwanted visibility. His first client was a young executive heading to the airport, absorbed in her phone, treating him like skilled furniture. The normalcy of it was almost relaxing. This he knew how to do. This role he understood. But between rides, alone in the car, Ryan found himself thinking about Evelyn's board meeting, wondering if she was winning her fight or losing it, questioning whether he should reach out or respect the distance she'd asked for. His phone stayed silent. No texts from her, no updates, no indication that their coffee shop conversation had meant anything beyond temporary connection in a crisis. He told himself this was fine, expected even. They'd both said what needed to be said. Now they were returning to their respective lives, changed by the experience but not fundamentally altered. Friends at a distance, maybe, but nothing more complicated than that. Then Thursday arrived, Lily's science fair. Ryan had almost forgotten about it in the chaos of the past week, but Lily hadn't. She'd been preparing for months, her butterfly project meticulously researched and beautifully presented. When he picked her up from school that afternoon, she was vibrating with excitement. Is it perfect, Daddy? Does it look professional? Ryan examined her display board, hand-drawn diagrams of butterfly life cycles, photos she'd taken at the botanical garden, carefully written facts about metamorphosis and migration. It's better than professional butterfly. It's real. Mrs. Rodriguez says I might win a ribbon. A real ribbon I can keep forever. Then we better make sure you're ready to shine tonight. They arrived at the school gymnasium at 6:30. The space had been transformed into a showcase of elementary school science, volcano models, solar system dioramas, experiments with varying degrees of success and parental involvement. Lily found her assigned spot and began setting up with the seriousness of a CEO preparing for a board presentation. Other parents filtered in, some greeting Ryan normally, others maintaining the careful distance that suggested they still weren't sure what to believe about the scandal. Ryan ignored the judgment, focusing entirely on Lily, on her pride in her work, on the joy radiating from her as she explained butterfly migration patterns to anyone who would listen. At 7 o'clock, the doors opened for viewing. Families moved through the displays, teachers offered encouragement, judges circulated with clipboards and thoughtful expressions. Ryan stood back, letting Lily be the star, watching her light up as people asked questions about her research. Then he saw her. Evelyn Grant stood in the gymnasium doorway, dressed casually in slacks and a blazer, looking completely out of place among the elementary school families and completely certain of her right to be there anyway. Her eyes scanned the room until they found Ryan, and she smiled, small, uncertain, hopeful. Ryan's heart did something complicated in his chest. Evelyn approached slowly, navigating through the crowd with the careful movements of someone entering unfamiliar territory. When she reached him, she spoke quietly. I hope this is okay. You mentioned Lily's science fair, and I thought... She stopped, suddenly unsure. I wanted to meet her. If that's appropriate. If I'm not overstepping. Ryan thought about boundaries and complications, about protecting Lily from the messiness of adult relationships. But he also thought about what Mrs. Chen had said, about showing his daughter what it looked like to build a life instead of just maintaining one. "It's okay," he said. "She'd like to meet you too." He led Evelyn to Lily's display. His daughter was in the middle of explaining monarch migration to an interested couple when she noticed them approaching. Her eyes went wide at the sight of the elegant stranger beside her father. "Lily, this is my friend Evelyn. Evelyn, this is my daughter Lily, the butterfly expert." Lily straightened, suddenly formal. "Hello, Miss Evelyn. Would you like to learn about monarch butterflies?" Evelyn knelt to Lily's level, genuine interest on her face. "I would love to learn about monarch butterflies. Are they your favorite?" "They're everyone's favorite because they're beautiful and they travel 3,000 miles. Lily's formality dissolved into enthusiasm. "But I like swallowtails better because they have those long tails and they come in lots of colors. And did you know some of them taste bad to birds, so the birds leave them alone?" "I didn't know that. That's brilliant, being beautiful and protected at the same time. That's what Daddy says about being smart, that smart people know how to be strong without being mean." Lily looked between them. "Are you smart?" Evelyn laughed, the sound genuine and light. "I try to be. I make a lot of mistakes, though." "That's okay. Mrs. Rodriguez says mistakes are how we learn." Lily gestured to her display board. "Want to see my metamorphosis drawings? I did them myself." For the next 20 minutes, Ryan watched Evelyn and Lily discuss butterflies with the kind of engagement that couldn't be faked. Evelyn asked thoughtful questions, listened carefully to answers, treated Lily like her expertise mattered. And Lily blossomed under the attention, explaining her research with growing confidence. Other parents noticed. Ryan saw the looks, the whispered conversations, the recognition dawning on faces as they realized who was kneeling beside his daughter's science project. The CEO who'd been in the news all week, defending her driver, fighting her board, making headlines for all the wrong reasons, according to some people, and all the right ones, according to others. But Evelyn seemed oblivious to the attention, focused entirely on Lily, and Ryan felt something shift in his understanding of who this woman actually was. Not the brilliant CEO or the lonely executive or the person having a breakdown, just someone who knew how to make a 6-year-old feel important. The judges announced their decisions at 8 o'clock. Lily won second place in her category, a blue ribbon that she clutched like treasure. She immediately showed it to Evelyn, who congratulated her with the kind of warmth that suggested she actually cared. As families began packing up, Lily tugged on Ryan's sleeve. "Can Miss Evelyn come for ice cream with us? Please? She's really nice and she likes butterflies and I want to show her my collection at home." Ryan looked at Evelyn, giving her an out if she needed it, but she smiled and said, "I'd love to see your collection, if your dad says it's okay." "It's okay," Ryan heard himself say, making a choice that felt both inevitable and terrifying. They ended up at the ice cream shop 3 blocks from Ryan's apartment, Lily between them at a sticky table, explaining the difference between moths and butterflies with passionate intensity. Evelyn listened like it was the most important lecture she'd ever attended, asking questions that encouraged Lily to think deeper about her answers. "So butterflies change completely," Evelyn said thoughtfully. "They go into the chrysalis as one thing and come out as something totally different." "Exactly. Isn't that amazing?" Lily's ice cream was melting faster than she could eat it. "Daddy says people can change too, but it's harder because people don't have chrysalises." "Your daddy's right. People do change, and it is harder." Evelyn glanced at Ryan. "But sometimes we change because someone shows us we can. Like a caterpillar might not know it can become a butterfly until the time comes." "Have you ever changed, Miss Evelyn?" The question hung in the air, innocent and profound. Evelyn was quiet for a moment, considering her answer carefully. "I'm changing right now, actually. Trying to, anyway. Learning that being successful and being happy are different things. That power matters less than people. That asking for help isn't weakness." She smiled at Lily. "You're helping me change just by sharing your butterflies with me." "That's silly. I'm just a kid." "Kids are the best teachers. They remember things adults forget, like being excited about learning and being honest about feelings and not being afraid to care about things." Evelyn's voice softened. You're teaching me to remember those things. Lily beamed, then immediately returned to her ice cream and butterfly facts, the moment passing for her, but clearly lingering for Evelyn. Ryan caught her eye across the table and saw gratitude there, mixed with something else he couldn't quite name. After ice cream, they walked back to Ryan's apartment. The evening had turned cool, the kind of autumn night that promised winter wasn't far off. Lily skipped ahead, her ribbon pinned to her jacket, still talking about butterflies and metamorphosis and whether humans could grow wings if they believed hard enough. "Thank you," Evelyn said quietly, matching Ryan's pace, "for letting me be part of this, for trusting me with your daughter. She likes you. That doesn't happen easily." "She's wonderful, bright and curious, and completely unafraid of asking big questions." Evelyn smiled. "She reminds me of someone." "Who?" "Me. Before I learned to be careful about curiosity, before I started calculating the cost of every question." She looked at Lily's small figure ahead of them. "I want to protect that in her. The fearlessness. That's what scares me most about parenting, knowing the world will try to teach her to be smaller, quieter, less certain, and not knowing how to protect her from that without keeping her in a bubble. You're doing it right, letting her explore, encouraging her passion, showing up for what matters to her." Evelyn's voice held a note of longing. "My parents pushed me towards success, but forgot to teach me joy. By the time I built my company, I'd forgotten what joy even felt like." They reached Ryan's building, a modest structure that couldn't have been more different from Evelyn's glass tower. Lily ran ahead to the entrance, then turned back with an expectant expression. "Are you coming up, Miss Evelyn? I really want to show you my collection." Evelyn looked at Ryan, asking permission without words. He nodded, and they climbed the 3 flights to his apartment, Lily providing running commentary about each neighbor they might encounter. Inside, Ryan's home was exactly what it was. Small, cluttered with a child's life, decorated with Emma's touches that he hadn't been able to remove. Photos on every surface, bright colors that Lily had chosen, the organized chaos of single parenthood. Evelyn took it in without judgment, her expression suggesting she was seeing something precious rather than something lacking. Lily dragged her to the bedroom, showing off her butterfly collection, books, posters, a display case of preserved specimens that Ryan had bought her for her birthday, drawings covering every available wall space. Evelyn examined each item with genuine interest, asking questions that made Lily glow with pride. Ryan watched from the doorway, thinking about the strangeness of this moment. Evelyn Grant in his daughter's bedroom, discussing butterfly wing patterns like it was the most natural thing in the world. 2 weeks ago, she'd been a distant client he drove occasionally. Now she was here, part of their life in a way that should have felt intrusive, but somehow didn't. Eventually, Lily's energy crashed, exhaustion hitting her all at once. Ryan orchestrated bedtime with practiced efficiency, teeth brushing, pajamas, story time. Evelyn waited in the living room, and when Ryan emerged from Lily's room 20 minutes later, he found her studying the photos on his wall. "Is this Emma?" She pointed to a picture of Ryan and his wife on their wedding day, both of them impossibly young and hopeful. "Yeah, 10 years ago. Feels like a lifetime." She was beautiful. She was everything. Ryan stood beside Evelyn, looking at his wife's face frozen in time. Smart, funny, terrible at keeping plants alive, could talk to anyone about anything. She made people feel seen. Like you do. "I learned from the best." Evelyn turned to face him fully, her expression serious. "Can I ask you something, and will you be honest even if it's uncomfortable?" "Okay. Are you ready for this? Whatever this is between us, because I need to know before I let myself care more than I already do." She took a breath. "I'm fighting my board, rebuilding my relationship with my company, trying to remember how to be human. That's messy work, and it's going to get messier. I can't promise stability or simplicity. And if you're still grieving Emma, if you need time, if this is too much too fast, I need you to tell me now." Ryan thought about Emma's letter waiting for Lily's 18th birthday, about the life he'd planned that cancer had stolen, about 4 years of survival mode that had kept him functional but half alive. He thought about the walls Mrs. Chen accused him of building, about choosing safety over risk, about teaching Lily by example what it meant to actually live. "I will always grieve Emma, he said carefully. She's part of who I am, part of what made me capable of caring about people the way I do. But grieving doesn't mean stopping. It doesn't mean I can't build something new. He met Evelyn's eyes. Am I scared? Absolutely. Is this complicated? Incredibly. But I'm tired of letting fear make my decisions. I'm tired of surviving instead of living. And I think maybe you need someone who understands what it's like to rebuild yourself from nothing. Someone who sees you, not your position. Someone who chose to stay when leaving was easier. I need all of that, Evelyn admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I need it more than I've needed anything in 20 years. Then we figure it out together, slowly, carefully, with Lily's well-being as the priority. But we figure it out. Evelyn stepped closer, and for a moment Ryan thought she might kiss him. But instead she just rested her forehead against his shoulder, breathing deeply, and he wrapped his arms around her, feeling the weight she'd been carrying alone finally shared. Thank you, she said into his shirt. For tonight, for Lily, for not giving up on the idea that I could be more than just a CEO. Thank you for remembering that I'm more than just a driver. They stood like that for a long moment, two people who'd found each other in crisis and were choosing, deliberately and terrifyingly, to stay found. Outside, the city hummed with its endless motion. Inside Ryan's small apartment, something new was being built from honesty and risk, and the courage to believe that broken people could heal each other if they were brave enough to try. When Evelyn finally left, Ryan stood at his window and watched her car disappear into traffic. His phone buzzed with a text from her. I meant what I said, about caring, about wanting to figure this out. He typed back, so did I, about all of it. Then he went to check on Lily, finding her asleep with her blue ribbon clutched in one hand, already dreaming of butterflies and transformation. Ryan smoothed her hair back, thinking about metamorphosis, about the courage it took to become something new, about the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, he was finally ready to let himself be more than a man surviving grief. He was ready to live again. And that realization, after 4 years of careful numbness, felt like waking up from a dream he hadn't known he was having. The following week unfolded with a strange new rhythm. Ryan returned to his driving roots with renewed purpose, but now his phone held text messages from Evelyn, small things mostly. Updates about her therapy sessions, questions about Lily's day, observations about the world she was learning to see differently. Nothing dramatic, nothing that crossed lines, just the steady building of connection between two people learning to trust something fragile and new. But beneath the surface calm, Evelyn's corporate battle was intensifying. Ryan saw it in the tension that crept into her messages, in the exhaustion evident during their brief phone calls, in the way she apologized for canceled coffee dates because board meetings ran late into the night. On Wednesday afternoon, Marcus called Ryan into his office again. The déjà vu was unsettling, but Marcus's expression held something different this time. Not accusation, but opportunity. Evelyn Grant requested you specifically for a job tomorrow night, Marcus said, watching Ryan's reaction carefully. Corporate event at the plaza. She needs a driver she can trust, and apparently that's you. What kind of event? Emergency shareholder meeting. The board's pushing for a vote on her leadership. Marcus leaned back in his chair. This could get ugly, Ryan. Media will be there. Protesters probably. People looking for any excuse to prove she's unfit. You sure you want to be in the middle of that? Ryan thought about Evelyn standing in front of her company defending him, about the cost she'd paid for choosing truth over convenience. I'm sure. All right, but keep it professional. I don't need any more headlines about you two. The next evening, Ryan arrived at Evelyn's building at 5:30, giving himself extra time to navigate what he suspected would be chaos. He was right. News vans lined the street, reporters clustered near the entrance, cameras ready to capture any moment that could be spun into narrative. Evelyn emerged at exactly 6 o'clock, dressed in a navy suit that projected authority and control, her expression calm despite the storm brewing around her. But when she slid into the back seat and met Ryan's eyes in the mirror, he saw the fear she was hiding from everyone else. Ready for battle? He asked quietly. As ready as I'll ever be. She buckled her seatbelt with hands that trembled slightly. Ryan, if this goes badly, if they vote me out, I need you to know that I don't regret any of it. Defending you, telling the truth, fighting for what's right. Even if I lose everything, it was worth it. You're not going to lose. You don't know that. No, but I know you. And I know that people who build something real don't lose it to people who only know how to tear things down. He pulled into traffic, navigating toward the plaza. You've got this, Evelyn. Trust yourself the way you trusted me. She was quiet for a moment, then, will you wait? After you drop me off. I know it's not protocol, but I'd feel better knowing you were there when it's over. I'll wait as long as you need. The plaza was surrounded by even more media than her building had been. Ryan pulled up to the entrance, and immediately cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, microphones thrust toward the car. Security held them back, but barely. Evelyn took a deep breath, gathering herself. Then she turned to Ryan one more time. Thank you for everything, for staying that night, for defending me when you didn't have to, for showing me what integrity actually looks like. Her voice caught. Whatever happens in there, you changed my life, Ryan Cole, and I'm grateful. Before he could respond, she was out of the car and moving through the crowd with the controlled grace of someone who'd learned to navigate hostile territory. Ryan watched until she disappeared inside, then found a place to park and settled in to wait. The shareholder meeting was scheduled to last 2 hours. Ryan spent them alternating between anxiety and forced calm, checking his phone obsessively, reading news updates that speculated wildly about the outcome. Some articles painted Evelyn as a visionary fighting corporate corruption. Others suggested she'd lost her grip on reality, that her defense of a mere driver proved she'd prioritized personal drama over shareholder value. At 8:15, his phone rang, Evelyn's name on the screen. It's over, she said, and Ryan couldn't read her tone. And? I kept my position, barely. 52% of shareholders voted to retain me as CEO, contingent on implementing new oversight structures and bringing in an independent chair for the board. She laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. I won, but they made sure I know I'm on probation. One more scandal, one more moment of poor judgment, and they'll remove me without hesitation. But you won. I won. The reality seemed to be settling in. Ryan, I actually won. I stood up for what was right, and I didn't lose everything. Where are you? I'll bring the car around. Service entrance. And Ryan, can we not go straight back to my place? I don't want to be alone in that empty penthouse tonight. Ryan understood immediately. I know somewhere better. 20 minutes later, they were parked overlooking the East River, the city lights reflecting off dark water, the car filled with the kind of silence that comes after surviving something that should have been unsurvivable. I thought they were going to destroy me, Evelyn said finally. The CFO presented this entire case about how my emotional state was compromising the company. He had graphs, Ryan. Actual graphs showing correlation between my defense of you and declining stock prices. What did you say? I told them that stock prices fluctuate, but integrity doesn't. That I'd rather run a company worth less money and more humanity than the reverse. That if they wanted a CEO who valued profit over people, they should have said so 20 years ago before I built this whole thing on the principle that technology should serve human needs, not the other way around. She turned to look at him. Then I showed them our security footage from that night. All of it. You sleeping in the guest room, leaving at 6 a.m., every moment proving that nothing inappropriate happened. And I dared them to tell me that compassion was poor leadership. That took courage. It took desperation and anger, and the memory of a driver who stayed with me when he had every reason to leave. She reached across the seat, taking his hand. You saved my company, Ryan, not by staying that night. That just created the crisis. You saved it by showing me what kind of leader I wanted to be. Someone who protects people instead of sacrificing them. Ryan squeezed her hand, feeling the weight of what they'd both survived, the magnitude of what they were building. What happens now, with the board, with the company? Now I implement their oversight structures and prove I can lead effectively while maintaining my principles. I bring in an independent chair who'll keep me accountable without undermining me. I rebuild trust with shareholders who are skeptical but willing to give me another chance. She smiled tiredly. And I keep seeing my therapist every week because apparently I have 20 years of workaholism and emotional avoidance to unpack. Sounds like a solid plan. What about you? What's your plan? Ryan thought about the question he'd been avoiding asking himself. Honestly, I don't know. Keep driving, keep raising Lily, Keep figuring out what it means to build a life instead of just maintaining one. He hesitated. And maybe see where this goes. With you. If you're interested in finding out, I'm very interested. Evelyn shifted closer, and this time when she looked at him, there was no corporate distance, no power differential, just two people who'd found each other in crisis and decided they were worth the risk. But I need you to understand something. I'm not good at this. At relationships, at vulnerability, at letting people in. I'm going to mess up, push you away when I'm scared, default to work when things get complicated. It's going to be frustrating. I'm not good at it either. I've spent 4 years building walls and teaching myself not to need anyone. Ryan met her eyes. But I think maybe we can figure it out together, learn to be bad at it in ways that make each other better. That's possibly the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Really? That's concerning. Evelyn laughed, genuine and light, and kissed him. Not the desperate kiss of crisis or the calculated kiss of strategy, but something honest and tentative and full of possibility. Ryan kissed her back, feeling years of careful control dissolving, replaced by something he'd thought died with Emma. Hope. When they finally pulled apart, Evelyn rested her forehead against his. I should probably go home. Big day tomorrow, restructuring to plan, board members to convince I'm not having a breakdown. Probably, but for the record, I think this, us being honest about wanting something together, is the opposite of a breakdown. Tell that to my CFO. But she was smiling as she said it, already moving back to her seat, already rebuilding the professional composure she needed for her world. Ryan drove her home through the late-night city, both of them quiet but comfortable, the silence no longer empty but full of understanding. When he pulled up to her building, Evelyn hesitated before getting out. Have dinner with me this weekend, you and Lily. Somewhere that's not a corporate event or a coffee shop or crisis management. Just dinner. Just us figuring out what normal looks like. Lily would love that. She's been asking about you. What does she ask? Whether you're my girlfriend, whether you're going to be around, whether she should be worried about you making me sad. Ryan smiled slightly. She's 6, but she's perceptive. Knows something's different. What do you tell her? The truth. That you're someone important to me, that we're figuring things out, that nothing's certain but some things are worth trying for. Evelyn's expression softened. She's lucky to have you as a father. I'm lucky to have her as a daughter. She keeps me honest. Then I guess I'll have to earn her approval this weekend. Evelyn gathered her things, preparing to leave. Thank you, Ryan, for waiting, for believing I could win, for not giving up on me even when I almost gave up on myself. That's what people do when they care about each other. They stay. She kissed him once more, quick and sweet, then disappeared into her building. Ryan sat in the car for a few minutes, processing the enormity of what had just shifted between them, before finally heading home. Mrs. Chen was waiting in his apartment, having put Lily to bed hours ago. She took one look at his face and smiled knowingly. You look different. Do I? Like someone who remembered he's allowed to be happy. She gathered her things. How'd it go with Evelyn's meeting? She won, kept her position, fought off the board, proved that integrity matters. And you too? Ryan felt heat rise to his face. We're figuring it out, slowly, carefully, with Lily's well-being as the priority. Good. That's good, Ryan. Mrs. Chen paused at the door. Emma would approve, you know. Not because Evelyn's rich or powerful, but because she makes you remember you're human. That matters more than anything else. After she left, Ryan checked on Lily, finding her asleep with a butterfly book open beside her. He closed it gently, tucked her in, and stood watching her breathe for a long moment. This small person who'd become his entire world, who'd given him purpose when grief threatened to swallow everything, who deserved to see her father build a life worth living. Saturday arrived with the nervous energy of first dates and new beginnings. Ryan had told Lily they were having dinner with Miss Evelyn, and she'd immediately begun planning her outfit and preparing butterfly facts she wanted to share. Her excitement was infectious, masking Ryan's anxiety about blending his carefully separated worlds. Evelyn had chosen a family-friendly Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, deliberately casual and far from Manhattan power scenes. When Ryan and Lily arrived, Evelyn was already there, dressed in jeans and a sweater, looking more relaxed than he'd ever seen her. Miss Evelyn! Lily ran ahead, and Evelyn caught her in a hug that looked natural, unforced. Hey, butterfly expert, ready to tell me more about swallowtails? Dinner was easier than Ryan had expected. Evelyn asked Lily about school, about her friends, about what she wanted to be when she grew up. Lily answered with 6-year-old honesty, then turned the questions back on Evelyn with equal curiosity. Do you have kids, Miss Evelyn? No, I don't. I always thought I would someday, but I spent so much time working that someday never came. That's sad. Kids are great. I'm great. Lily said it with such sincerity that both adults laughed. You are definitely great, Evelyn agreed. The greatest butterfly expert I know. Do you want kids now? Because Daddy says it's never too late to start things you want to do. Ryan nearly choked on his water. Lily, that's a pretty personal question. It's okay. Evelyn smiled at him, then turned back to Lily. I think I'd like to spend more time with kids, yes. Maybe not have my own, but be part of someone's life who could teach me about butterflies and remind me what matters. You could be part of my life, Lily offered generously. I'm really good at teaching people things. I would be honored. After dinner, they walked through Prospect Park, Lily running ahead on the paths, collecting fallen leaves and pointing out every butterfly she spotted in the fading light. Ryan and Evelyn followed at a slower pace, hands linked, watching her play. She's testing me, Evelyn observed, asking personal questions, watching how I respond to her dad, figuring out if I'm trustworthy. She learned that from experience. People haven't always been kind after Emma died. She's protective. Smart kid. I'd be protective too if I were her. Evelyn squeezed his hand. How am I doing? On the trustworthy scale? You're doing great. She likes you, which isn't easy to earn. I like her too. She's everything good about the world. Curious and honest and completely unafraid of asking hard questions. Evelyn watched Lily examining a leaf with intense concentration. Being around her makes me want to be better, less afraid of vulnerability, more willing to risk caring about things. She has that effect on people. They caught up to Lily at a playground where she immediately challenged Evelyn to see who could swing higher. Evelyn accepted without hesitation, kicking off her expensive shoes and pumping her legs like a child, laughing with genuine joy as Lily declared her the winner by a narrow margin. Ryan watched them together, this brilliant woman who'd built an empire and his daughter who collected butterflies, and felt something settle in his chest. Not the desperate love he'd had with Emma, but something different. Something that acknowledged loss while reaching toward possibility. Something built on honesty and shared survival and the courage to believe that broken people could create something whole together. As the sun set and the park began to empty, Lily grabbed both their hands, swinging between them as they walked back to the car. Miss Evelyn, are you going to be Daddy's girlfriend? Ryan felt Evelyn's hand tighten in his. She knelt down to Lily's level, treating the question with the seriousness it deserved. I'd like to be, if that's okay with you, but that means we'd all be figuring things out together. Your dad and me and you. It means I'd be around more, part of your lives in bigger ways. And I need to know if you're comfortable with that. Lily considered this carefully. Will you still teach me things? And listen when I talk about butterflies? Always. And you won't make Daddy sad? Because he's been sad for a really long time, and I want him to be happy. Evelyn's eyes glistened. I can't promise I'll never make him sad sometimes, because people who care about each other sometimes hurt each other by accident. But I can promise I'll always try to make him happy more than sad, and I'll always care about both of you. Okay then, you can be his girlfriend. Lily said it with the authority of someone granting royal permission, then immediately returned to collecting leaves. Evelyn stood slowly, wiping her eyes, and Ryan pulled her close. That went well, he murmured against her hair. She's extraordinary. You're raising someone extraordinary. We're raising someone extraordinary. If you're willing to be part of that. Evelyn pulled back to look at him. Are you asking me to help raise your daughter? I'm asking if you want to be part of our lives, really part of them. Not just dinners and phone calls, but the messy, complicated, everyday parts. Homework help and doctor's appointments and figuring out what it means to build a family that doesn't look traditional but works anyway. Yes. The word came out immediately, certain. Yes, I want that. All of it. The mess and the complications and the everyday moments. I want to matter to people who matter, and you two matter more than anything I've built in 20 years. They drove home through the Brooklyn streets, Lily falling asleep in the back seat, Ryan and Evelyn's hands linked across the console. When they arrived at his building, Evelyn helped carry a sleeping Lily upstairs, watching as Ryan tucked her into bed with practiced gentleness. In the living room afterward, Evelyn looked around at the photos of Emma, the evidence of a life built and lost and slowly rebuilt. "Does it bother you?" Ryan asked. "The pictures, the memories, the fact that I'll always love her?" "No, it makes me trust you more, actually. You loved her completely, grieved her honestly, and you're raising the child you made together with dedication and care. That tells me you know how to commit to people, how to show up even when it's hard." Evelyn moved to stand in front of him. "I'm not competing with Emma. I'm just trying to be someone worthy of the space you're willing to make for me alongside those memories." Ryan kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I need to tell you something about the job, about boundaries, about making this work without compromising either of us." "Okay. I can't keep being your driver. Not if we're doing this for real. The power dynamic, the professional complications, it's too messy." Evelyn nodded slowly. "I agree. So what do you want to do instead?" "I don't know yet. I've been driving for 4 years because it was stable and flexible and let me focus on Lily. But maybe it's time to figure out what I actually want to build, not just what keeps us surviving." "What did you do before? Before Emma got sick?" Ryan hesitated. "I was an engineer, software development actually. Worked for a tech startup that went under right before Emma's diagnosis. Never went back after she died because I couldn't focus on code when I could barely focus on getting through each day." "You were an engineer." Evelyn's eyes lit up with recognition. "That's why you asked such good questions that night. About building things. About the work versus the results. You understood." "I understood. But I haven't written code in years. I'm probably obsolete." "Or maybe you're exactly what Apex needs." She was already thinking, planning, seeing possibilities. "I'm building this new division, ethics and workplace culture, making sure we treat people like humans instead of resources. I need someone who understands both technology and humanity, who can bridge the gap between what's efficient and what's right." "Evelyn, I can't work for you. That's even worse than being your driver." "Not for me. With me. As an equal, with a team you'd build, reporting directly to the board to maintain independence." She grabbed his hands. "Ryan, you showed me what integrity looks like in crisis. Imagine what you could do building systems that protect that integrity every day, creating policies that value people over profit, designing processes that make compassion scalable." The idea was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. "I'd need to update my skills, learn what's changed in 4 years. So we invest in training. We give you the time and resources to get current. We build this right instead of fast." She pulled him to sit on the couch beside her. "I'm not offering you a pity job, Ryan. I'm offering you a chance to build something that matters while I rebuild what I almost lost. Partners in actually making corporate culture human." Ryan thought about it, really thought about it. Working alongside Evelyn, building systems that protected people like him, creating policies that valued humanity over efficiency, using his engineering background to design compassion into corporate structure instead of just pointing out where it was missing. "It's risky," he said finally. "People will say I got the job because we're together, that it's nepotism or favoritism or proof that you're still making poor decisions. Let them say it. We'll prove them wrong by doing excellent work." Evelyn's voice was fierce. "I'm done making decisions based on what people might think. I'm making decisions based on what's right and what builds the future I actually want to live in." "Okay," Ryan smiled, feeling something unlock inside him. "Okay, let's do it. Let's build something that matters." They talked late into the night, sketching plans and possibilities, discussing how to structure the division, what values would guide it, how to measure success beyond profit margins. Evelyn's strategic mind combined with Ryan's technical knowledge created a vision that felt revolutionary and necessary, a tech company that actually prioritized the humans it employed and served. At midnight, Evelyn reluctantly prepared to leave. "I should let you sleep. Big day tomorrow." "What's tomorrow?" Sunday, family day. I was hoping you and Lily might want to spend it with me. Nothing fancy, maybe the Natural History Museum, then lunch, then whatever Lily wants to do. Ryan thought about his usual Sundays: laundry, meal prep, park visits, the comfortable routine that had sustained them through years of grief. Then he thought about Evelyn swinging beside Lily at the playground, about building a life that included joy alongside responsibility. "We'd love that," he said. "Lily will be thrilled." Evelyn kissed him goodbye at the door, lingering in the moment before separation. "I love you, Ryan Cole. I know it's too soon to say it, that we should probably wait until we're more certain, but I'm tired of being careful with true things." Ryan's heart stuttered, then steadied. "I love you too. Not the same way I loved Emma. That was a different life, a different version of me, but real and honest and worth building toward. That's all I need. Real and honest." She touched his face gently. "Thank you for taking a chance on me, for seeing past the CEO to the person underneath, for staying when you could have walked away. Thank you for fighting for us, for proving that power can be used for good, for showing Lily what strength with compassion looks like." After she left, Ryan stood at his window, watching her car disappear, then checked on Lily one more time. His daughter slept peacefully, her blue ribbon on the nightstand, butterfly dreams playing behind closed eyes. Ryan sat on the edge of her bed, thinking about Emma, about the letter waiting for Lily's birthday, about the life they'd planned that cancer had stolen. He thought about grief and healing, about survival and living, about the difference between existing and thriving. "I'm going to be okay," he whispered to Emma's memory. "We're going to be okay. I know you wanted that for us. Wanted me to find happiness again, wanted Lily to see me build a life worth living. I think I'm finally doing that. I hope you're proud." The room was silent except for Lily's breathing, but Ryan felt something settle in his chest. Not closure, because grief didn't close, but acceptance. Emma would always be part of him, woven into everything he was and everything he'd become. But she didn't fill all the space anymore. There was room for Evelyn now, for new love built on different foundations, for a future that honored the past without being trapped by it. Sunday dawned bright and cold, autumn asserting itself with brilliant leaves and sharp air. Evelyn arrived at 9, carrying coffee for Ryan and hot chocolate for Lily, already learning the rhythms of their life. They spent the day exploring the museum, Evelyn and Lily discussing extinct butterflies with the same enthusiasm they'd shown for living ones. Ryan watching them build their own relationship independent of his role as bridge between them. In the weeks that followed, a new pattern emerged. Evelyn joined them for dinners twice a week, always bringing thoughtful questions for Lily and careful attention to the details of their lives. She attended a parent-teacher conference with Ryan, not as CEO, but as someone who cared about Lily's education. She learned to braid hair through YouTube tutorials, determined to be useful during chaotic school mornings. And slowly, carefully, Ryan began the process of transitioning from driver to executive, updating his technical skills through online courses Evelyn's company sponsored, meeting with the team he'd eventually lead, designing the framework for ethics and workplace culture that would define Apex's next chapter. The media continued to speculate about their relationship, but the narrative had shifted. Instead of scandal, it became a story about second chances and corporate reform, about a CEO brave enough to prioritize humanity and a single father who'd reminded her what mattered. Not everyone approved, but enough people resonated with the honesty that the criticism lost its power to wound. 3 months after that first dinner, on a Saturday morning when snow was just beginning to fall, Ryan woke to find Evelyn already in his kitchen making pancakes with Lily, both of them covered in flour and laughing about something. He stood in the doorway watching them, this makeshift family he'd never planned but was learning to build, and felt Emma's presence like a blessing instead of a ghost. "Daddy!" Lily spotted him. "Miss Evelyn is teaching me to flip pancakes. Watch!" She demonstrated with more enthusiasm than skill, and Evelyn caught the pancake before it hit the floor, both of them dissolving into giggles. "We're a disaster," Evelyn admitted, grinning at Ryan, "but we're a happy disaster." "The best kind," Ryan agreed, joining them in the kitchen, pulling both of them close. Later, after pancakes had been eaten and dishes cleaned, After Lily had run off to work on a new butterfly drawing, Evelyn and Ryan sat together on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. "I have something to tell you," Evelyn said quietly. "The board approved the ethics division budget yesterday. Full funding, 3-year commitment, complete authority to implement changes across the company. That's amazing. It means you start officially in January, building the team, designing the systems, making compassion structural instead of aspirational." She tilted her head to look at him. "Are you ready?" "Terrified and ready, which seems about right." "Good. Because I need you in this fight with me, making sure we build something that lasts beyond either of us, that changes how companies think about the humans they employ." Ryan kissed the top of her head. "We'll build it together, just like we're building this. This is scarier than corporate reform." This is definitely scarier, but also better." Evelyn smiled against his shoulder. "Much better." In Lily's room, their daughter was drawing butterflies emerging from chrysalises, transformation captured in crayon and childhood imagination. On the wall, Emma smiled from photographs, her presence no longer painful but protective, a reminder of love that had shaped them, loss that had taught them, and the courage required to risk caring again. Ryan looked around his small apartment, seeing it differently now. Not as a space frozen in grief, but as a home being rebuilt with new love, new purpose, new possibility. The photos of Emma would stay, the memories would remain. But alongside them now were new moments. Evelyn's laughter, Lily's acceptance, the slow building of a family that didn't replace what was lost, but created something equally valuable in the space grief had carved out. That night, after Evelyn had gone home and Lily was asleep, Ryan sat at his kitchen table and wrote a letter. Not to Emma this time, but to Lily, to be opened someday when she was older and wondering how her father had survived losing the love of his life. He wrote about grief that never fully heals but eventually transforms, about walls built for protection that eventually become prisons, about a single choice to stay with someone who needed help, and how that choice had somehow saved him as much as it had saved her. He wrote about Evelyn, about taking risks on love that looked different than what came before, about teaching through example that broken people can build beautiful things together. And he wrote about Emma, about carrying love forward instead of burying it, about honoring the past while building toward the future she would have wanted for them. When he finished, Ryan sealed the letter and placed it in the box with Emma's letter, 2 pieces of wisdom waiting for his daughter to be old enough to understand that love takes many forms, that loss is survivable, that courage means staying open even when closing off feels safer. Outside, snow fell steadily, covering the city in quiet white. Inside Ryan's apartment, warmth and peace and the promise of tomorrow. Lily dreamed of butterflies. Emma rested in memory. Evelyn waited in possibility. And Ryan, finally, was not just surviving. He was living, the kind of living that Emma would have recognized and approved, messy and brave and full of love that didn't diminish what came before but expanded to include what came next. The kind of living that taught Lily about resilience and hope and the courage required to believe in second chances. The kind of living that proved, despite everything that tried to break them, that choosing kindness was never the wrong choice. Even when it cost everything, it gave back more than it took. And in the end, that was the only truth that mattered. Ryan had stayed when leaving was easier. Evelyn had fought when silence was safer. Together they'd built something worth defending. Not perfect, not simple, but real and honest and worth every risk they'd taken to find each other. In his daughter's room, butterflies covered the walls, each one a reminder that transformation is possible, that change is survivable, that beauty can emerge from the most unlikely places. And in his own heart, finally, Ryan believed it. He was enough. They were enough. Love was enough. Everything else was just details they'd figure out together, one brave choice at a time.